I've been asked by my subscribers to talk about these 8 protesters who've been convicted in Texas and sentenced to just extreme sentences in a grave miscarriage of justice, 30 to 100 years. These were overwhelmingly nonviolent protesters. There was one person at that protest who fired a weapon, and they have been convicted of attempted murder, but everybody else was charged essentially with being an accessory or being part of a conspiracy, even though these people didn't know each other. They weren't there for the same purpose. And I covered this story when it first broke. I expressed my concern that the regime was going to try and take any crime, any act of violence that happened at any protest and try and charge everybody there with domestic terrorism, with being part of Antifa, because that's exactly what they have done in Texas. Now, I'm not an attorney. I really encourage you to go listen to attorneys like Rachel Cohen, who have talked about this case extensively, about the appeals process that is still forthcoming, the need for pardons, the need for us all to understand what jury nullification is, right?
People got 50-year sentences in federal court today because they set off fireworks outside of an ICE facility. And I would love to say that the reason that you're not hearing more about this is exclusively because we're being suppressed. That is not true. The main reason that you're not hearing much about this is because many liberal commenters refuse to talk about this case because they think it's a bad case to talk about because a cop was injured. That these are bad people to defend, despite the fact that, again, 8 of the 9 people who were convicted on material support for terrorism charges did not fire a weapon. The man who did fire the weapon, video evidence shows he aimed it at the ground and it ricocheted and hit the officer in the shoulder, who survived and also had his weapon drawn, and that the man was in an open carry state in Texas. The man who did fire the weapon was sentenced to 100 years. 100 years for that. And the idea that this is not worth talking about because it's going to turn people on it, these people aren't perfect victims, whatever. Number one, that indicates to me that the vast majority of people refusing to speak on this have not looked into the case at fucking all. Number two, this is how they get you. These charges, material support for terrorism, those have not been sought, as far as we know, in most other anti-ICE protest cases. In Illinois, people were not indicted on that charge. In Minneapolis, they were not indicted on that charge. In Texas, they were indicted on that charge because they are trialing it, and Texas is a friendly venue. And they also, of course, going to make the test case for that somewhere where an officer was injured. They don't even have one where an officer was killed because that hasn't fucking happened. So not speaking on this now is exactly how you ensure that they start seeking indictments for material support for terrorism in cases where there was nobody that was injured, and in other venues that are not as friendly as Texas, because this is a federal statute, so they could seek an indictment on it anywhere. The nonviolent versus violent protest distinction needs to be gone yesterday. Not because I am calling for violent protest, but because they will convince you that property damage is violence. They'll convince you that blocking a car, bringing people to a concentration camp is violence. And you cannot cede ground and accept a government convicting some people for terrorism, for being present at a protest where a weapon was fired, unless you are okay with eventually all anti-ICE protest being defined as violence and terrorism.
But I do want to talk about the public perception when it comes to this case and what the government is trying to do here. They're trying to make you afraid to exercise your First Amendment rights. They're trying to make you so scared of going to prison for 30 to 100 years for moving pamphlets or showing up to wave a sign at a protest that you roll over, that you hand over your constitutional rights and you submit to their fascist agenda. That's been their goal all along. That's why they're trumping up this term, domestic terrorists. That's why they're trying to paint Antifa as a terrorist organization. Antifa just means anti-fascist. It is not an organization. Again, if your government is seeking to prosecute/persecute people for being anti-fascist, what does that make your government? If they are afraid of anti-fascists, what does that make your government? The only domestic terrorists we have in this country are the January 6th insurrectionists who broke into the Capitol, who beat law enforcement, and Donald Trump has pardoned all of them. But they want to put people in prison for decades for being anti-fascist and exercising their constitutional rights. Now, it's even worse than that. Attorney Liz Oyer has uncovered, I think she's the one who broke the story, uncovered information about Todd Blanche and the kind of carte blanche he's been given or given himself when it comes to people who've been convicted of federal crimes.
6 weeks ago, the Justice Department quietly adopted a new policy that gives the Attorney General the power to send any federal prisoner to any prison in the country. If you are facing a federal prison sentence, Todd Blanche has total discretion to decide where you'll serve your time. This is a huge deal, and it's a huge departure from past practice. Under this rule, Blanche could direct the Bureau of Prisons to put anyone who opposes the Trump administration in a maximum security prison. If you're prosecuted for protesting ICE, for example, or for vandalizing Trump's reflecting pool, you could serve your sentence alongside murderers and rapists. Blanche could decide to put all of Trump's enemies in maximum security prisons. He could put all Democrats in maximum security prisons. There are no limits, no checks, and no review of his decisions. That is very, very scary. Trump would love to be able to just disappear his political opponents, and this is a step in that direction. There was no announcement of this change, but here it is, hiding in plain sight. It was signed May 6th by William Marshall, the director of the Bureau of Prisons. Marshall was appointed by Trump, and he reports directly to Blanche. This policy was not in place last year when Blanche had Ghislaine Maxwell transferred to a minimum security camp. Her transfer broke about a zillion different rules. But now, Blanche can move her again, maybe even to home detention or a halfway house in the community. The Senate Judiciary Committee needs to ask Blanche for an explanation before they confirm him to be our next Attorney General. Please share this information widely and ask your senators to demand answers from Todd Blanche.
Yeah, understandably, this is all real scary shit. This is fascist shit. They are trying to take away your freedom and your rights. They are trying to control everything that you do. They're trying to strip you of your constitutional rights in this country. That's scary shit. That's scary shit. But honestly, I'm really fucking tired of seeing creators covering this story like this. Waving signs at a protest will get you decades in prison. In Donald Trump's America, going to a protest could land you in federal prison for 100 years. I've seen multiple videos like that, and I just want to shake those creators and say, what are you doing? What do you think you're doing? You are trying to scare people into submission. You're not helping, folks. You are fear-mongering. You are being extremely alarmist. We should all be outraged at this injustice that has happened in Texas. The solution to that, how we get justice for these people, how we defend our rights, is not by scaring people into giving up their rights, scaring people so much that they are afraid to exercise their right to protest. And forgive me, but I'm a little suspicious of anybody who is making extremely alarmist content around this case when it comes to telling you what you should or should not feel, or how frightened you should be to go out and protest, to go out and exercise your rights. Because that's the goal of the regime, right? The overarching goal of the regime here is to make an example out of these people, to scare 340 million of the rest of us into handing over our rights and submitting to a fascist future. That's their goal. That's their goal. And we have to understand that we cannot let that kind of propaganda work on us. We can't give them what they want. We have to be the kind of people who say, fuck you, make me. We have to be the kind of people who say, I am not handing over my rights to this regime. I am not handing a single fucking victory to this regime. If what they want is for me to sit down and be quiet, to be afraid to exercise my rights, then I will not give them that victory. I would like to point y'all to the Broadview 6 and how their cases were thrown out, and the judge had a scathing opinion for the prosecutors, and it looks like the Department of Justice committed prosecutorial misconduct on multiple levels in that case. So I look forward to seeing how all of that advances. There also was a veteran recently who was arrested and charged for protesting outside the White House, and his case was also thrown out. I want you to hear from him.
I know I haven't been posting in a while, but I just want to let you know today justice in Washington, D.C. still stood. My charges for protesting at the White House have been dropped. But it's not about me. It's about the intimidation. What they're doing is they're arresting people who did not commit a crime, and the process is the punishment. So do not be fucking intimidated by the Trump administration. Keep fucking protesting, get louder, stay fucking peaceful, but keep going. 15 people were arrested in Minnesota today. They didn't commit a fucking crime, but they're gonna go through the same punishment and process that I have, even though they haven't done a damn thing. So keep fucking fighting, everyone. All power to the people.
Exactly. He's exactly correct. They either want to try to convict you or because they know. I mean, I think this conviction is shocking to everybody. Not shocking that it happened in Texas. Shocking to everybody because these cases are so flimsy and they are so deeply flawed. What their real goal is to make your life a living hell by dragging you through the criminal justice system, by weaponizing the criminal justice system against you, by trying to make you go bankrupt defending yourself. Not surprising, Todd Blanche, Donald Trump's former personal lawyer, would use this tactic because that's been Donald Trump's business plan for decades. Anybody pisses him off, he files a lawsuit because he knows his pockets are super deep and he will bankrupt you going through that lawsuit process, even if he has no case. The idea is to ruin your life for years and years until you have no money left and you have wasted your life trying to defend yourself, even if at the end of the day, the case gets thrown out. Donald Trump has succeeded, right? And we cannot allow that to govern our behavior. We cannot allow that fear of a bully bullying us cause us to surrender. I'm going to reference for the millionth time here Sergej Popovich's Blueprint for Revolution about the Otpor movement in Serbia. If you've not read it yet, you should. You should read it immediately. Popovich talks about how Slobodan Milosevic's police would threaten protesters with prison. And because these were young, nonviolent folks who'd never gone to jail before, prison represented the unknown. They were afraid of the unknown, and so it was a weapon that the regime could hold over them. If you protest, if you insist upon your rights, we will arrest you and throw you in jail, and jail is so big and scary. And then they started getting arrested, and what they found was like, oh, okay, now that we know what jail is like, now that we know what the interrogation process is like, now that we've been through all of this, the mystery is gone, right? The boogeyman aspect of it is gone. Now, this speaks to how important solidarity is because Sergej says that not only was it important for people who got arrested to tell everybody else what it was like after they got out, to demystify it, right? But all of the Otpor movement created this culture of like, if you've been arrested, you're a hero. Instead of shying away from people who'd been arrested and charged, instead of wanting to distance themselves from those folks, instead of being afraid to exercise their rights like the folks who got arrested, no, they treated them like celebrities, like, oh my God, you're a fucking badass. You got arrested for exercising your rights? Okay, we're going to take up a collection and make sure that you get your lawyer bills paid. We're going to make sure that your family is fed and that they get their rent paid. That's solidarity. It takes away the power of the government to hold arrest and imprisonment over the heads of people who are willing to sacrifice everything for democracy and a better future. The answer here to what we're experiencing is not that we sit down and we give up our rights. It's that we continue to vigorously exercise our rights, even in the face of malicious prosecution, even in the face of the Department of Justice, which is supposed to be the people's legal representation. Instead, it is being weaponized against us. In the face of all of that, we continue to exercise our rights. And also, we support the folks who are arrested and are persecuted by the government. We make sure that we take up collections for their attorney's fees. We make sure that we are supporting their families. We make sure that they know that they are not alone and that their sacrifices are not in vain. And then we work to get justice for them. I think Rachel Cohen has talked about the importance of, again, jury nullification, pardons in the future. In the Otpor movement, getting arrested and charged and prosecuted was such a badge of honor that people were given different colored shirts depending on how many times they had been arrested. The shirt with the like big Otpor fist on it. If you had a black shirt, it meant that you had been arrested. I just had to look it up. More than 10 times. You'd been arrested more than 10 times. And these black shirts with the fist on them became so coveted because it was a visible demonstration, a public fuck you to the regime, saying your scare tactics, your intimidation tactics will not work on us. We will proudly exercise our rights in the face of your oppression. That's the kind of energy we all need to bring to the party. We speak even though our voice shakes. We exercise our rights even though we're scared. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be scared. What the regime is trying to do is really scary shit. It's awful fascist shit. But we don't give up just because we're afraid. We don't hand over our rights just because we're afraid. We don't give them a victory. They want to scare us into submission. We will not allow them to be successful in that. And then also remember solidarity. If people in your community are arrested, if they're charged, what are you guys doing to take care of them? Right where you are locally. If your neighbors are arrested, what are you doing to take care of their families? What are you doing to take care of your neighbors and have solidarity with other folks who are willing to sacrifice it all for democracy.